why do you feel so strongly to come out on a cold evening like this?
Because I'm determined not to pay me taxes.
Yes.
Not for the bins in any way. I pay them for everything else. And
Yes.
that applies to the brown bin when it comes out as well.
Yeah, well, this is, I think this is the 8th year we've been here on these protests. We're here to protest because the Dublin City Council estimates contains a stealth tax, a charge for bins, which we're opposed to. We think it's double taxation on working class people who pay PAYE taxes. We think the government should fund the council adequately so it doesn't have to charge for these services. We now have a position where private companies, a company called Panda, are advertising to compete with Dublin City Council's bin collection service. They're offering a cheaper rate, and in effect, through this bin charge, we could see the privatisation of a vital community service, essential for the health of the city and so on, becoming privatised. What that means, you know, in terms of the quality of the service, it will deteriorate. These companies will only do it for a profit. People who now have waivers could lose their waiver. And we're saying the best way that Dublin City Council can compete with companies like Panda is to go back to a free service, a free collection.
Once you put a price or cost on the collection of our waste, it becomes a commodity, and therefore you have private companies wanting to get in on the act. And what has happened over the last number of years is that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has issued over 100 licences to private waste collectors for the collection of waste in the city, domestic waste in the city. And now you just see one rogue firm who is now aggressively touting for business by trying to undercut the council. This is only a short-term thing. We know from throughout the country that these firms do that for the initial 1 or 2 years, and then they hike the prices up to over €1,000. So we'd ask people to be very wary of that. Don't go with these private companies. Stick with the campaign if you're not paying. And if you are paying, join the campaign again, because this campaign is not going to go away.
Well, Sinn Féin are here this evening to show our objection to the budget that's been proposed by the management here in Dublin City Council, because we don't feel it is our job to implement government cuts. This budget that we're being given tonight has substantial cuts in it. It doesn't provide housing, it doesn't provide adequate social services. It's the actual central government funding, the local government fund, has been slashed dramatically, and it's not our job to implement government cuts. Let that be on the head of Labour and Fianna Fáil. That's not our job. Our job is to oppose an unfair budget and to demand a proper, more just budget that provides housing and social amenities for everybody in the city.
And is Dublin Council in a position to be providing proper housing, social housing for people instead of developers?
We firmly believe so. We think we have the PPPs, the public-private partnerships, have collapsed, and there's a void that needs to be filled. And we think we have the ability to fill that if we're given the proper and adequate funding. We could carry out the buildings, employ people at a time of recession, provide good homes of a high standard, and also take the money back into tax and to VAT. We think it would benefit the city and indeed central government as well, and provide good, adequate homes for people who need them.
I believe there's word going around that they're trying to get it back because there's too much money in the green bins that they've lost out where they should have kept the green bins and made money instead of us having to pay for the black bins. They've been better off keeping the green bins and making a profit ourselves, so we wouldn't be out here tonight protesting.
Because I'm completely opposed to the bin tax. It's a double taxation, it's an illegal tax, and we've been fighting it for a number of years, and we're hoping that our voices will add to everybody else's and hopefully scrap the bin tax. Yes, as far as I can see, the bin tax and all these taxations, as the privatisation of hospitals, privatisation of schools, the water rates which are going to come in, are all a policy set down by Europe for the privatisation of all of our amenities, our necessities and our infrastructure. And eventually we're going to have nothing is going to be free in this country, and everybody's going to be squeezed. And in time of economic downturn and economic crisis, it's the poor people who are getting squeezed all the time.
And what do you think about what's being rumoured that Panda are going to take over the franchise of the council.
I heard that right. Well, it's a bit of a shame for the council workers. I mean, this was always a big concern of council workers when we were talking about the protest a couple of years ago, was that their jobs would be at risk, and it's proven to be true. Now, the council promised them, and all the councils and the corporation promised them that their jobs would not be under threat, but they obviously lied. You know, and I mean, how are you meant to trust these people who lie to you continuously? You know.
And what do you think will happen to bin charges if a private company does take it over?
Well, I have known people who live out in County Meath, and Thornton Waste run it out there, and it went up continuously, and has gone up continuously, and the same thing will happen here. It will go continuously. I mean, it's a done deal. Anywhere where private enterprise takes it over, it does go up. You know, they first of all keep the cost down initially as a foot in the door, and then they raise them year on year.
No private company has ever issued a waiver for their service.
So of course it's cheaper for them to run it.
Of course. I got a call about 2 years ago from a distraught man in Galway, where up to that point their bin was collected by the council, and just overnight, they got a letter to the door from a private company saying you have to pay €1,000 a year. His wife's on disability pension, he's an old age pensioner. He was absolutely distraught. And this is what happens when you have these private companies. Now, the difference is the council isn't handing over this service to Panda, but Panda are aggressively touting for the service and trying to undercut. And if people go to them, it will mean that in future waivers will go.
One last question. Are we going to win tonight?
No. Labour Party will vote with the management on this issue, as they've done traditionally over the last number of years. And really, when you look at the situation we're in economically at the moment, to go in there and prop up government legislation that has failed the people of the city from the point of view of a failed bin tax, failed public-private partnership with the people of the city, failed legislation to protect people against the speculators and the developer-led planning laws and plans that are put in the city. This has all been driven by the government through the council, and unless the council stand up, and if they were real opposition, they'd be up there voting against the estimates, saying to the manager, if you want to disband us, but we're not putting up with this any longer. We're not accepting this failed policy, and we're going to be with the people. Be out in the streets of the people, the pensioners and the students and the teachers and the whatever, demanded that this government should just resign immediately.